Hey guys, Dotarian here, back with another Last Epoch video. So the launch of Last Epoch is within a few days, and today we have a few developer blog posts that were put up. So we're going to go through some of the developer blog posts that were put up during the week. Now, first one is the Paladin skill, that Healing Hands, that wasn't available during early access but will be on 1.0 launch. Healing Hands is a healing skill that Paladin has. So this particular dev blog shows you some teasers for the Healing Hands skill and the skill tree. And I've had a quick look and it is very, very exciting. So first, we look at Healing Hands. As a baseline, Healing Hands is an ability which casts a medium area effect which heals allies, including yourself, for an immediate burst and applies a heal over time for 3 seconds. So you can see it costs a bit of mana and it scales off of spell, buff, area, and attunement. And you can see here, the animation isn't really that good, but I'm assuming it's like a circle that does a bit of heal. Both heals from the ability scale with increased healing effectiveness as well as nodes on the skill tree. This grants Healing Hands not only a strong immediate recovery, but also a fairly strong heal over time to keep yourself and allies nice and healthy. As a Paladin, Healing Hands can offer very strong competition to even Life Leech as a source of health sustain, in addition to its specialization options. So naturally, as a Paladin, you're going to be building a lot of healing effectiveness if you take this skill. Also, healing effectiveness is just in general quite good because some skills in the Paladin tree scale off of increased healing effectiveness. So if you take this skill and those particular skills, it's going to be very good for you as a form of health sustain. Then we have a node in the Healing Hands tree, which is Cleric's Hammer. Cleric's Hammer grants Healing Hands a chance to trigger on any melee attack, up to 100% chance with 4 points assigned. This imbues all melee attacks to provide healing to all allies and yourself in the area. So you can see here, Paladin does a attack and it basically triggers the Healing Hands, which is quite good. I really enjoy skills like this, which kind of synergize and proc Healing Hands. So Healing Hands chance to proc on melee hit. So this means that you don't even need to have Healing Hands on you in order for that to proc. Next we have Hand of Aurelius, which basically allows Healing Hands to synergize with direct smite casts, adding to its own healing area to smites, combined with Searing Light, adding damage to Healing Hands' area effectiveness. Healing Hands can further augment smite builds with the additional hit. So we have Healing Hands now hits enemies within its own area effect, adding fire damage. Added spell damage applies to it at 200% effectiveness, so essentially it deals fire damage. When you cast Smite, you have a chance to cast Healing Hands around the target location, consume 70% of the mana cost. So this is basically another way to proc Healing Hands without even having it on your skill bar. And again, I think that's a really creative use of applying Healing Hands. Then we have Divine Bolts, which shows you the animation. You can see every time you cast Healing Hands, it sends out like a little Divine Bolt. You cast Divine Bolt at enemies when you cast Healing Hands and heal yourself on allies. When you directly cast Healing Hands and heal yourself. So I guess because it says directly cast, does that mean this procs? So I don't think so. I think it's a direct cast. Divine Bolt is affected by specific passives from the Paladin tree, and if you take this node, Divine Bolt from all sources scale with the node on this passive tree. With Divine Bolts, I think in the passive tree there are a couple of nodes which is specific for Divine Bolt. Next we have Raya's Chariot, which will turn Healing Hands into a traversal spell, charging to a target location, casting Healing Hands upon arrival. It adds 6 seconds to Healing Hands cooldown, but unlike Lunge, the Chariot does not require target to move on. And so you can see here, you are immune to damage while moving with Healing Hands. That's really cool, immunity. And also you dash to target location, counts as a traversal spell, but it has a 6-second cooldown, which is really, really cool. I think if Healing Hands becomes your movement skill, you can pretty much take all of the nodes in Healing Hands, and essentially if you're going like Smite Paladin, for example, you have the Cleric's Hammer to proc sorry, not Cleric's Hammer, you have the Hand of Aurelius to proc Healing Hands. Or if you're going for a more melee-focused build, you could take Cleric's Hammer as one of your nodes and kind of proc it as well. I think that's really, really cool, turning a healing skill into a movement skill. Then you have Seraph Blade. Prefer to channel your healing powers into your blade. Take this note to convert Healing Hands into a melee attack, converting spell damage from this tree into melee damage. So you can see here, wow, it does like a spin slash, which I think is really cool. Healing Hands is converted into a melee attack that hits in a wide arc in front of you. It now scales off with melee damage instead of spell damage and affects this tree. Healing Hands still heals you as well as allies within its area effect. Okay, so essentially getting a lot more melee damage will heal you for more, is what is the message that I'm getting, and it deals fire damage as well. So essentially you'll scale from fire and melee with this particular node. Then we have Skybeam. Just to show you what that one looks like. Essentially it's like a beam of light that kind of pretty much purifies everything down from below. That's pretty crazy, and I think that's really cool. I think this will be a build in itself. You just place Skyfall Paladin. By paying an additional mana cost per second, you will deal additional fire damage over time while channeling Healing Hands, Scorching Path of Righteousness. So Skyfall, while channeling Healing Hands, you also call down a beam of light from the sky that deals fire damage over time. And essentially, it's channeling, and it costs an additional 7 mana per second. So with this particular node, you'll be very important to have a lot of mana efficiency, mana like regen and things like that. Then we have this node here, Unbroken Prayer. Healing Hands becomes channel ability, casting 4 times per second regardless of cast speed and draining your mana. You do not regenerate mana while channeling. Okay, so this is whilst channeling, and this makes it channeling, and you can't regenerate mana. Okay, so after you channel it, you need to recover your mana back. So essentially getting a lot of mana recovery nodes actually, I guess, would still be very important. Cast per second 4 times, and mana cost per second is 8. So essentially with these two, it's actually pretty mana intensive, it looks like. Thank you for joining us today. Basically Healing Hands still remains available at 5 points invested into the Paladin tree, meaning that you can pick up Healing Hands either as Forge Guard or Void Knight, should you theorycraft such a use. So this will be pretty cool, picking up early in the tree for early survivability when you're leveling up. The other couple of things that we're going to look at, so we have the next day was teased to have the item and trade factions. This was already kind of teased before, but they pretty much answered a lot of questions in this particular article. I'm not going to go through this particular article, but I'll put a link to it in the description down below. And then we have the new items and new affixes that is coming in the release. So new item bases is referring to implicits and the base item. So essentially you have an item, it has implicits on it, and then you'll have prefixes and suffixes as your choosable affixes. But the base item itself, they all have the same implicits on it. So if you get Citadel boots, it will always have these particular implicits. Vanguard boots will always have these particular implicits as well. So the Citadel boots, you can see, obviously because they're boots, they offer move speed, but this next one here, you can take reduced damage from crit strikes, which is quite strong. Otherwise, you have 33% effect of haste on you. So essentially, it's applying more haste. And haste is an effect that will increase your move speed. Then we've got base gloves. You've got cooldown recovery, 6%, 6 to 12%. 12% is, it's okay. It's not an insane amount, but it's not bad. Then you've got the arcane braces, which gives you mana and increased mana regen as well. This one would be quite good in builds that build a lot of mana, adding that implicit stat to your maximum amount of mana. You've got new belts. So just looking at this image, we've got 8% increased move speed and 4 potion slots, armor and potion slots, and we've got ward decay threshold. So ward decay threshold is essentially you have ward, which is like a shield. Ward decay is basically that energy shield that you get, it will start to decay over time, and the threshold is referring to the limit at which that decay stops. Okay, then we've got helmets. So with the helmets, you have armor and elemental damage leech as health. Then you have the blood visage, which gives you armor, increased damage over time, and increased bleed duration. So bleed rogue will find this quite useful. And then you've got necropolis helm, which is ward decay threshold, 6 ward on, so ward gain on kill, and some armor as well, so on a helm. And then you've got some examples of body armor. So this is like a sentinel body armor, which is gained at level 79. 500 armor is quite a lot of armor compared to everything else. So this particular body plate is actually really strong. Then we've got stun avoidance. So essentially, the higher your stun avoidance, the less likely you are to get stunned. And then you've also got 22% increased echo damage when your skill is echoed. This is specifically for a Void Knight, based on the echo damage, because Void Knights do echo damage. Then you've got Beast Mail, which will give you move speed and regen. And then you've got the Coven Robes and Acolyte Body Armor, which gives you cast speed and mana regen. So all these items look quite specialized towards their own class, which is really good to see. Then you've got new weapon affixes. So examples of weapon affixes you've got here, minion spell damage and minion bow damage. Then you've got physical penetration and minion physical penetration as well. So it looks like they're also trying to buff minions a bit more. It's not like minions weren't strong enough already, but essentially, yeah, they even said here, minion damage is a stat which is in fairly high supply in Last Epoch, where minion flat damage is quite rare. Okay, so essentially they're adding minion flat damage, which will just make minions so much more powerful. It's probably a good idea to go minions in this particular launch. I think they'll probably have a way to balance this out. Essentially, probably they'll decrease the amount of damage minions can do, but then you can get more damage on your items. Possibly, I'm not sure. We'll have to see when the launch actually happens. We've got class-specific affixes for the Warlock and the Falconer, which are the 2 new classes coming on launch. So just a quick look here, we've got increased damage over time when you have ailment overload. You have increased spirit frequency with Chthonic Fissure, which is one of their skills. 3 additional projectiles when you cast Chaos Bolts, another skill of the Warlock. And then finally, you've got +2 to Profane Veil, which is another skill. Increased damage over time, because the Warlock will focus a lot on damage over time. So that's going to be quite beneficial to the Warlock. And of course, these ones here, these particular affixes you can see are on the different types of gear. This is on the idol as well. And then you've got the Falconer idols and affixes that you can get as well. You've got +6 throwing damage to Caltrops, increased area with Caltrops, and armor shred with Caltrops. You've got chance to deal double damage with Falcon Strikes, increased damage with Dive Bomb, and increased area with Dive Bomb. Dive Bomb is like a skill where the Falcon will dive bomb and do like basically like a nuke. Then you've also got +1 to explosive traps, which will be another one of the skills of the Falconer. And then of course we've got the Primalist changes to Gathering Storm already in effect as well. Essentially, when you use Gathering Storm in your skill tree, you have some nodes associated with that as well. So +2 to Gathering Storm, meaning that you can spend 2 more points in your Gathering Storm skill tree, as well as 19% increased area for area skills, which pairs naturally really well with Gathering Storm. And then new unique items as well. So new uniques that we're looking at, we have Sigyn's Reprisal. This shield offers a new way to create retaliation builds, so thorns, by granting shield throwing damage based on the damage reflected, as well as a chance to retaliate with shield throw when you block. And shield throw is specifically quite good on Forge Guard, as well as Paladin as well. So Paladins and Forge Guards will probably like this item a lot, especially the Forge Guard, because you have a current build at the moment, which is the Manifest Armor Shield Throw build. Essentially, you'll be proccing the Shield Throw on your Manifest Armor to deal AoE damage. This gives +3 to the Shield Throw skill tree, 28% chance to retaliate with shield throw on block. So when you block, essentially you'll throw out a shield throw, which is really, really strong. You've got increased block chance, which pairs naturally with the Sentinel class. 113 damage reflected to attackers, and +1 throwing damage for shield throw per 10 damage reflected to enemies. And you've already got 110 damage reflected back to enemies. So essentially this is plus like 11 throwing damage for shield throw, which is pretty insane because shield throw will scale off of flat damage really, really well. Then you've got Communion of the Erased, which is a new Weaver's Will item. Weaver's Will is like a legendary. Essentially, each time you have each number of Weaver's will give you 1 tier of an additional affix on this item as you play with this particular item. So Communion of the Erased has stats on this item are doubled for 1 second after using a potion. So this is a potion focused one. +1 potion slot per equipped Weaver item. Okay, so essentially it pretty much wants you to have more Weaver's items. 51% increased armor, 33% of mana spent as ward, and 12% increased damage to stun enemies. So this is pretty much quite a defensive item that's focused towards having a lot more Weaver's Will items. Then you have Falcon's Fist. Unarmed builds are a common topic of discussion. While we don't have any core mechanics for unarmed combat, the last unarmed unique we introduced has been quite popular. So unarmed is essentially a unique item that rewards you not having a weapon. So with the Falconer gloves, we have +13 Cinder Strike melee damage per level of falconry while unarmed, 4% Cinder Strike area per level of falconry while unarmed. While unarmed, your falcon hits grant Cinder Strike +4 melee damage and 1% increased damage for 6 seconds, +3 to Cinder Strike, +4 to falconry. Wow, this is really cool. And you got 15% in melee attack speed and 24 melee fire damage for you and your minions. So essentially this is a item that takes advantage of Cinder Strike, which is a very underutilized skill in the game at the moment, and essentially combos Cinder Strike and makes it insanely strong whilst you're not holding a weapon. So I think this weapon is cracked. I think this is going to be insanely good. And you can see here how it looks. It kind of looks like a monk build, which is really, really cool. I really enjoy this. We have Spine of Malatros. It's a warlock weapon. Let's have a look. So we have increased, so +3 to fire skills, +2 to damage over time skills, and +2 to acolyte skills. So if you have an acolyte damage over time fire skill, this is gonna give you +7 to that particular skill. So 27 skill nodes that you can apply for a skill that applies to all 3 of these criteria, which is ridiculous. Then you have Chthonic Fissures, cast Flame Whip instead of releasing spirits. Chthonic Fissures skill tree applies to Flame Whip from all sources, and you've got crit multiplier and extra spell damage. This is like an insane unique for someone who's going to go Chthonic Fissures, like a fire-based Chthonic Fissure. Vial of Volatile Ice. Last item we're looking at today, which changes visuals. It's a catalyst item. It will convert Ice Flask to cold damage and grant it Frostbite. Let's have a look here. So, Vial of Volatile Ice, 100% of Acid Flask base damage is converted to cold. Poison chance from all sources converted to Frostbite chance for Acid Flask. That's really cool. Then we have a 55% chance to apply Frostbite on cold hit, 27% increased area for cold skills, 20% increased cold damage, and you get freeze rate multiplier as well, which will help you apply freeze much quicker. And there's a little visual here showing you what it looks like. This is using the nodes that help you throw a lot more acid flasks straight away. And I think that's really, really cool. I really like taking advantage of skills that are not used much. So things like Cinder Strike, which is not used at all on Rogue, or barely used, because it's quite weak. And then also Acid Flask as well. Late game Acid Flask tends to fall off quite well, but essentially now changing it so that you can apply cold is another way of applying crowd control and basically turning your damage so that you can focus a lot more on cold, which I really enjoy. I really like taking advantage of these underused skills. So I think this is like one item that I'll be looking out for quite a lot, as well as this one. I can't wait to try this one. Unfortunately, because it's a unique, it is RNG based, but I do really like the changes that are coming. And so they're right here, continuing to build upon existing gearing options. We feel these additions further help itemization within Last Epoch, bringing us up to the release standards. We hope the increased diversity of item options will help many builds flourish, as well as create completely new build options. And so with these changes, I'm really excited for what's coming. Launch is in a few days. I can't wait. All right, that's been my look at the upcoming changes in Last Epoch in a few days. We're going to have the patch notes soon, so hopefully we can review that as well. If you've enjoyed the video, drop me a like down below and subscribe to the channel. As always, have an awesome day. Bye for now.